on a forgotten space station at the edge of the galaxy. A simple act of kindness was about to get the attention of the most powerful being in the universe. It all kicked off with a broken toy and a tiny, crying alien child. For the lone human mechanic on duty, it was just a moment of pity. But for the Emperor, watching light years away, it was something else entirely, a profound and unexpected test of character. Station Epsilon 9 wasn't just a career dead, it was a graveyard, a forgotten speck of metal and recycled air, the last lonely stop before the vast empty void of space. For Sarah, though, it was home. She was the station's only human mechanic, a small cog in a big, lonely machine, tasked with keeping the ancient systems from finally rattling apart. Her days were a quiet, predictable loop of diagnostics and repairs, the low hum of the station her only real company. And honestly, she liked it that way. She understood circuits and power cores a lot better than she understood people, which is exactly why she took a job at the edge of nowhere. Then, one night during the third cycle of her shift, something broke her routine. As she made her final rounds through the cargo bay, her boots echoing on the metal floor, she heard it. It wasn't the usual groan of stressed metal or the hiss of a leaky pipe. This was a sound that did not belong here, a sound so out of place it made the hair on her arms stand up. It was a soft, heartbroken whimper at first. She figured it was just the station's old vents playing tricks on her, a ghost in the machine. But then she heard it again, a hitched sob that tugged at something deep inside her. Every protocol told her to ignore it, file a report, and move on. But against her better judgment, she found herself walking towards the sound. Curiosity, or maybe just a flicker of long-dormant empathy, pulled her off her path and down a service corridor she barely ever used, toward an old maintenance alcove filled with junk. The whimpering got louder, clearer, full of a sadness that felt way too big for such a small sound. And there, huddled behind a dead gravity generator, was the source. It was a child, a small alien kid, no taller than her waist, covered in shimmering emerald and black scales. Tiny, iridescent wings were folded against its back, trembling with every sob. But its most stunning feature was its cheeks. They were crystalline and translucent, and you could see a faint, biological light pulsing inside them. Right now, they were streaked with tears that sparkled like liquid diamonds as they hit the floor. In its little clawed hands, it was clutching a broken device. Sarah had seen them in technical manuals, but never in person. It was a Zephyrian memory crystal, a piece of tech that was part machine, part living thing. It was supposed to glow with a steady, warm light, but this one was shattered. A spider web of cracks ran across its surface, its internal light sputtering a pale, sickly blue. The child held it up to her, its voice wavering through her collar's translator. "It won't sing anymore," the child cried. "The memory is broken. I can't hear Mama's lullabies." Sarah's heart just stopped. This wasn't a toy. It was a lifeline, a comfort object holding a child's most precious memories of its mother. And for a kid all alone out here, it was everything. In that instant, every rule about non-interference, every instinct for self-preservation, just vanished. She didn't see a piece of complex alien tech. She saw a child with a broken heart. Of course, Sarah had no idea she was being watched. Light years away, on the command throne of a cloaked Imperial warship, Emperor Asterix watched the whole scene play out on a holographic display. This was a being who had seen stars being born and empires turn to dust. He was here for a reason, to conduct a difficult but necessary test for his young son, Prince Kalen. The boy needed to learn resilience and strength in solitude. The memory crystal, a gift from his late mother, had been designed with a flaw, meant to fail. The Emperor's own scientists, the best in the galaxy, had already looked at the diagnostics. Their conclusion was unanimous. The crystal was a total loss. The bioneural pathways were severed beyond repair. He expected his son to grieve, overcome it, and then signal for pickup. What he hadn't planned for, in all his thousands of years, was a random human mechanic stumbling into the test. Now, he watched, his ancient, golden eyes narrowed with intense curiosity. This soft-skinned, lowly creature had just found the heir to the Dragon Empire. What she did next would be very, very interesting. Sarah had a choice. She could call it in, Alert Station Command. They'd follow the book, which meant quarantine, reports in triplicate, and a whole lot of red tape. The process would probably end with the child being taken away and the toy incinerated as unidentified tech. The thought of that small, trembling kid being put through all that, it made her ache, so she made a different choice. She knelt down slowly, keeping her hands where he could see them. "Hey there," she said softly. "It's okay. I'm not gonna hurt you." The child Kalen looked up, his big starlit eyes filled with fear and a tiny spark of hope. Can I take a look?" Sarah asked, nodding toward the broken crystal. "I'm a mechanic. I fix things. It's what I do." The prince hesitated, clutching the fractured crystal to his chest. But then, slowly he reached out and placed it in her hand. It felt strangely warm, pulsing with a faint, erratic life. Sarah looked at the damage. The Emperor's experts were right. By any normal standard it was junk. The cracks ran deep, and the delicate connectors were frayed and dead. But where they saw a catastrophic tech failure, Sarah saw something else. She saw a story. She saw the ghost of a song trapped in a broken shell. "Come with me," she said, her voice filled with a new resolve. "Let's see what we can do." Sarah led the little prince back to her workshop, a cluttered but organized space that smelled of ozone and metal. Her tools were primitive compared to what the Zephyrian Empire had, but they were laid out with care. They were extensions of her own hands, familiar and reliable. From his silent perch, Emperor Asterix watched, fascinated. His specialists used quantum forges and atomic-level manipulators. This human was basically laying out hammers and chisels. And yet, there was a reverence in the way she handled the crystal that he hadn't seen in his own people. They saw a technical problem. She saw something else. Sarah placed the crystal under a magnifier, but she didn't try to force the pieces together. Instead, she went to work on the delicate bioneural pathways. Using a particle splicer on its lowest setting, she began to gently coax the frayed ends. It was less like soldering a wire and more like performing microsurgery. She wasn't just connecting circuits. She was encouraging life to flow back into them, humming a half-remembered tune from her own childhood as she worked. She was treating it not like a machine, but like a living thing that was hurt. The Emperor leaned forward. His scientists had said the energy patterns were gone for good, but he was watching this human do the impossible. She was using the faintest residual energy signatures as a guide, weaving them back together thread by painful thread. She wasn't repairing an object, she was communing with it, guided not by schematics but by pure, intuitive empathy. Hours crawled by. Then, slowly, a miracle. The sputtering blue light inside the crystal began to stabilize. It warmed into a soft, steady hum. Sarah made one final, delicate connection. For a second, silence. And then, a single, pure note filled the workshop. Then another, and another, weaving together into a soft, beautiful melody. The lullaby. It was back. Prince Kalen, who had been watching with wide, unblinking eyes, let out a gasp. The tears were gone, replaced by pure wonder. The crystal was whole again, singing in his hands. He looked past Sarah toward the darkened doorway of her workshop, a look of absolute joy on his face. "Father," he called out, his voice clear and bright. Sarah froze, tools still in hand. She turned, and there, in the doorway, a figure materialized out of thin air as its cloaking tech disengaged. He was immense, a towering, regal being whose presence seemed to bend the light around him. His armor pulsed with quiet internal power, and his ancient, golden eyes were locked right on her. Sarah's world just tilted sideways. The station alarms were silent. He hadn't broken in. He'd been here the whole time. The small, crying child was a prince, and she had just tampered with the personal property of the heir to the Dragon Empire. A cold dread washed over her. She was in so much trouble. The silence was deafening, broken only by the gentle lullaby. Sarah braced for the worst. She'd broken a dozen protocols. She'd interfered with a foreign royal. By all rights, she was completely, totally doomed. Emperor Asterix moved without a sound. He walked not to her, but to his son. He knelt, his powerful form seeming to soften as he looked at the restored crystal. He gently brushed a hand over his son's head, and then his deep, unreadable gaze finally settled on Sarah. When he spoke, his voice wasn't the thunder she expected. It was a deep, resonant bass filled with something she couldn't quite place. Pure, unfiltered. "OHR, our finest technicians," the Emperor began, his voice echoing in the small shop. "With all the resources of our empire declared this crystal a total loss. They are masters of this technology. They saw severed connections and irreversible failure." He paused, his golden eyes locking onto hers. "They said it was impossible, an object to be thrown away." He gestured to the humming crystal. "But you, a lone human on a forgotten station, you didn't see a broken object. You saw a broken heart. You heard a child's cry, and you chose to answer it. You used techniques my specialists would call primitive, guided not by cold logic, but by empathy." He stood to his full, towering height. "You didn't just fix it, you healed it." Sarah just stood there, frozen, unable to process what was happening. She expected to be vaporized, not praised. The Emperor looked from the crystal back to her, a decision forming in his ancient mind. He now saw the flaw in his test stand, the flaw in his entire empire's philosophy. They had mastered technology and power, but they had forgotten the strength of simple kindness. "Your actions will not be punished," Emperor Asterix declared. "They will be rewarded." And the reward he offered wasn't just money, it was a purpose. "You have a skill my people have lost, a perspective we desperately need. I'm offering you a position as a royal artisan in my own court. Your job will be to teach our engineers the art of healing, not just repairing." He explained that his scientists, watching her work, had made a staggering discovery. Her primitive repair hadn't just restored the crystal, it had actually improved it. The empathy she'd poured into the repair had enhanced the lullaby's therapeutic effect, creating a deeper sense of peace and security. Her human touch hadn't just fixed the machine, it had made it better. And so, Sarah's lonely life in her cluttered workshop came to an end. Her new life began in the grand crystalline halls of the Dragon Empire. She was no longer a forgotten mechanic. She was artisan Sarah, a respected teacher, an engineer, and a friend to a young prince. She had gone to the edge of the galaxy looking for solitude but found a family and a new home among the stars. It just goes to show, a single act of kindness, meant for an audience of one, can echo across an entire empire, in a galaxy filled with incredible technology and ancient power. Maybe the strongest force of all is something as simple as the human heart's capacity for empathy. What some might see as a weakness is actually our greatest, and most surprising, strength. If you enjoyed this story, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing for more tales from across the galaxy.